Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AnthroPuzzled podcast. I'm your host, Abby Letzinger, and every 2 weeks we'll explore how anthropologists are forging unique career paths beyond the usual academic sphere. Tune in, get inspired, and start piecing together your own career puzzle within the world of anthropology. On today's episode, we have Eboni Westbury. She graduated from the Australian National University with an advanced master's in archaeological and evolutionary science and zooarchaeology. Eboni is currently pursuing a PhD in archaeology and paleoanthropology, while also working at Blackwattle Archaeology as a senior archaeologist specializing in Aboriginal Australian archaeology. How are you doing today, Eboni?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of archaeology in there. So what is it that you do and how is it important and related in regards to anthropology?
Okay, so I'm specifically a zooarchaeologist. So that means that I work on bones, so not other types of material culture like weapons or stone tools or things like that. I specialize in bones. And within that, I specialize in two different fields. So in research, I specialize in Paleolithic archaeology, specifically European Neanderthals. And professionally, I specialize in Aboriginal Australian archaeology. But in both streams, again, working in zooarchaeology. So I study all the bones.
So zooarchaeology, some might hear that and think you work with like animal bones rather than people bones. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and no. So the way that I got here, I actually started off in forensic anthropology, which is the study of human remains, specifically under 100 years old. And then eventually I sort of was like, oh, well, there's only so much we can learn from, a single body under this amount of age. So let's extend that. So then I went into forensic archaeology, or bioarchaeology as it's sometimes referred to, which is the study of human skeletal remains, but in an archaeological context. And then by the time I finished my master's, I sort of was like, well, there's only so much information we can get from a human skeleton. I'm going to extend this to all the bones and see how we can infer human behavior from other types of species. So looking at butchery patterns, species that were hunted, how they use different bones to make different tools, just bones, everything bones.
Gotcha. Okay. So you work with a variety of bones, so animals and humans. Now, when you were going to school for this, and you're still currently going to school because you're pursuing your PhD, how difficult was it to try and differentiate what's a human bone and what's an animal bone? I'm sure if like the bones were intact, it'd be a little bit easier to like tell the difference. But when you have like fragments and shards, how do you tell what's animal and what's human?
Yeah, so this is actually a really good question. A lot of the time, you can't differentiate it to a species level. So, for example, in my PhD assemblage from Spain, I have around 250,000 bones. A lot of those, there's a lot of bone fragments, right? Most of those are under 2 centimeters in size. So they're not diagnostic to a specific species. But you can look at the different thickness of the bone, and that will give you some type of indication of what size usually mammals were. So generally, smaller mammals have thinner bones, larger mammals have thicker bones. So that's a good indication to determine the size of an individual. But unless you have a diagnostic feature of specific species, you really can't tell what it came from.
Ah, okay. So with you being in school and working as an archaeologist, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so it's pretty full on. So I work Monday to Wednesday, just, regular hours, as a consulting archaeologist. So that's a mix of, if I'm at home and not on field work, then that's just report writing and, data analysis and all that standard office work sort of thing. And then field work is usually over in Western Australia, in the Pilbara, which is a big mining centre in Australia, but it's where a lot of the archaeology happens. So that's sort of Monday to Wednesday and field work. And then Thursday and Friday, I'm a dedicated PhD days. And again, similar sort of construct. So if I'm not on field work, then I'll just be at home writing. And then if I need to go on field work, that'll be a couple of weeks, a couple months at a time, going and collecting the data. So yeah, so pretty full on, but it's a good mix between being in the office for long enough that you get sick of it and then going out into the field and being uncomfortable enough that you want to come home and have a shower and then sort of switching between the two.
So is it kind of like a 50-50 of like 50% of the time you're doing reports and 50% of the time you're doing field work, or is there a bigger difference in percentage?
In research, it's very much more writing than there is field work because you need to get the funding to get the field work. You need to have like research questions and proposals and really arguing why you need to do this research. Whereas in Australia, professionally, so the law in Australia is that before you do any kind of ground disturbing work, you have to get an archaeologist in to survey the land and make sure they're not going to disturb anything. So in professional consulting, there is a much more balanced, a much more balance between field work and office work. But in research, not so much.
Ah, gotcha. Now, I saw that you specialize in Aboriginal Australian archaeology. How is that different to just like regular Australian archaeology?
Yeah. So we have sort of two streams of archaeology in Australia. So we have the Aboriginal Australian archaeology, which obviously covers Aboriginal Australians. And then we have historical archaeology, which covers post-contact or like colonization archaeology. So the main difference is obviously the type of artifacts that you're finding. Aboriginal archaeology, you find stone tools, bits of ochre, sometimes bones. With historical archaeology, you're going to find much more, things that we see in our everyday lives, plates, pipes, pencils, building slabs, things like that. What's really interesting with Aboriginal archaeology is that it obviously transcends this border between like prehistory or ancient cultures and modern cultures because we have contact sites. So it's really interesting seeing the continuity of tools being made with different raw material types, like stone tools, and then they get contact sites where all of a sudden we're making artifacts out of glass bottles and things. So it is this really interesting, Aboriginal archaeology is really interesting because you get to study this entire continuum of lifestyles versus just one sort of period in time.
With Aboriginal Australian archaeology, because they're still present in Australia, that's kind of what you're referring to is like, we get to study their past, but because they are still present in Australia, we can also see what's going on in the present, of how they're using materials to make the same things they were back then, but using different materials to do that.
Yes, essentially, yes. And it is cool in Australia because we have archaeologists and anthropologists who work alongside each other with traditional communities. So all three of us sort of work together to combine scientific knowledge and traditional knowledge and really just build this solid understanding of culture. And we're in a really unique position because we can actually talk to that culture. It's still existing. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure other anthropologists and archaeologists might be a little jealous of that because, the individuals who are researching like ancient Egypt or, one of the like Chinese dynasties or anything, they're like, we don't really have like, yes, there are descendants, but it's not like these cultures are like ongoing. So there's only so much information they can get from whatever was left behind. But you guys actually get to interact with individuals where this has been passed down from generation to generation and they still exist. So I think other fields might be a little jealous that you get to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So what kind of led you into choosing this career path and how did you get where you are today?
It really honestly started like such a stereotypical sort of pathways. When I was a little wee girl, I loved ancient Egypt and dinosaurs. And then that obviously, like, I like loved them. Like my whole room was ancient Egyptian. Absolutely loved history. And then I got into high school. Loved ancient history. I got like the top score in Queensland for ancient history the year that I graduated. And the TV show Bones was very popular at that time. So I started getting into forensics. So by the time I got to university, I sort of had this idea that I wanted to do archaeology. Like I love history, I love bones, I love the past. I just wanted to do something with that. But I originally started off with forensic anthropology. So that's what I started with because of bones, essentially, right? I was like, wow, she's so cool. That's what I want to do with my life. As I said before, I started with forensic anthropology and then eventually I just needed to keep getting more information from different types of skeletons. And I'm actually considering going back once I finish this PhD and getting another one in paleontology, which is dinosaurs. So then I can just be qualified to any bone I pick out of the ground. I can look at it.
Oh my goodness. It could not be me. I finished my undergrad and I'm like, I think I'm good. I'm good. Stop a seat. Oh man. But see, now that when like if you tell people like, oh, I'm an anthropologist, I'm an archaeologist, and they're like, oh, so dinosaurs, you'd be like, yeah, I'd be doing that.
I think, honestly, I think the best way I can describe it is it's like a fairy tale, right? Like it's hard to believe that the things that you're studying and reading about actually happened. And then you take it that step further and you actually pull it out of the ground, right? And that's something that hasn't seen the light of day for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And even with my stuff with the Neanderthals, you pull something out of the ground. The last individual to touch this wasn't even our species. Like, it's hard to wrap your head around. It seems like a fairy tale, but it's real.
Yeah, I think that's what I find so cool about archaeology is you're literally holding the past in your hands when you're holding artifacts and things like that. And I think it's a great way to learn about history because who wants to just look at pages in a textbook to learn about history when you can go like to a museum and actually see these pieces? Like, even if they're like replications of specific pieces, it's still like, you're like, this is something that was in the ground however many years ago long, but it's something that actually exists and actually seeing, what people considered art back then and what they used to like you just see over time how people have evolved the tools that they use to be more efficient and more convenient to them. Because like if you look at stone tools from way back when, you're like, how did that cut anything? Like that must have taken forever.
I've done an experiment where I've had to butcher like animals with those stone tools, and it is very, very difficult. We really don't appreciate how much time and effort would have gone into making the tool and butchering the animal and making, whatever clothes, the needles you need to make the clothes in the first place. Yes, we've lost a lot of knowledge, I think.
I do think that as well. Now, when you started going into forensic anthropology, because you were going in for like the bones of it and whatnot, was there anything about that industry that kind of like, other than being like, oh, I want to know more about bones, I want to go further back in time, was there anything else that kind of made you think this might not be the specific career field for me?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of like sort of social influence that was influencing me to decide what I wanted to do. And then when I actually sat down and really thought about it, going back to when I was 6 years old and I just loved ancient history, I just realized like I love forensic anthropology. It's super interesting, but it's not my ultimate passion. It's not what I come home and read about or I think about or I love talking about. And so, yeah, and I wasn't just doing forensic anthropology either. So I did a double major and a double minor. So I was doing anthropology, archaeology, and Japanese all at the same time. So it was this good little mix to sort of get my foot into all the different doors and figure out which one like really like in my heart, like really resonated with me. And ultimately that ended up being archaeology. And I think it is because there's just such a breadth of information and knowledge like to learn, but then to also discover. Forensic anthropology, of course, is very important. There's a lot you can learn, but it is limited in the context that it's sort of applied to. Archaeology is just so broad, it spans from hundreds to millions of years ago, all different types of species, all different types of environments. Yeah, it's just endless.
So, are there any projects or publications that you worked on that you wanted to let the listeners know about that really excited you?
My Neanderthal stuff really excites me. The thing that I am the proudest of is developing a new method of studying butchery marks on bones using mapping software. And so that was one of the papers that I published first in my PhD. It's a methodology paper, so I'm quite proud of that. But watch this space. So the thing that, I'm sort of working on at the moment, which I'm really excited about, is actually applying this method to my zooarchaeological assemblage from Spain. And it's just really cool. So the way that we traditionally quantify an assemblage is we just, look at it, make notes on an Excel spreadsheet and then tally everything. Whereas what these methods are doing is they're actually drawing the bones and the fragments and the butchery marks on a mapping software like QGIS or ArcGIS. So it gives you a visual representation of what's happening. And then we can run all different types of spatial analyses and statistical analyses that are much faster and much more accurate than the human mind. And then what we can do from this is we can look at things like, how does culture influence behavior, right? Because traditionally, these Neanderthals have this dumb, brutish, sort of stooped over, lesser than human sort of appearance, but they absolutely weren't. I mean, if we interbred with them, then of course they had to be able to communicate with them in some way. So yes, so this is what I'm really excited about at the moment, is applying new or like modern technologies to sort of outdated methods. And I'm not the only one doing this. It's happening all throughout archaeology. We're applying artificial intelligence, machine learning programs, and it's just, completely revolutionizing the way that we're able to identify sites, do different analyses. So I think that's what I would like to draw attention to, is this current focus on combining technology with archaeology and really accelerating it, because we're sort of stuck in the 1950s with our practices.
Now, with the methodology that you're kind of creating, will it create sort of like a database of, based on the type of striations and the depth and the angles, like, can it create sort of a database of, what kind of tool or material was used to make these cut marks?
That could definitely be done. That's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing more on the spatial distribution rather than the morphology of the cut marks or the butchery marks. But my supervisor is doing morphometrics, and I'm pretty sure she's doing some machine learning stuff. So there might be some exciting research coming out soon looking at those type of things. But yes, mostly I'm just looking at spatial analysis to see if Neanderthals were applying butchery methods consistently within and between groups, and then how we can use that to infer different types of behavior and culture and knowledge.
Okay. So you said within groups. Would that also include like groups of other species of humans, I guess, and like what it kind of looked like after they started intermingling a little bit?
Yes, exactly. So we can look at butchery marks within, when I say a group, I don't mean one particular group. I mean one sort of spatio-temporal group, because Neanderthals, they moved across different sites, throughout the year. But generally, they're going to come across each other, right? So if we have butchery marks that are consistent, say they're butchering red deer one way in the north of Spain, but then they're butchering red deer a different way in Italy during the same time period, right? If it was based solely on how you butcher something, like the ease of doing it, then you would assume that would all be the same, right? But if they have different methods of butchering, then that's got to be an indication of some type of knowledge that's been passed down to those group members, right? But it hasn't been shared across. Whereas conversely, if we find similar methods across great distances, then maybe that might imply some type of knowledge transmission between groups rather than within a group. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. So is it kind of like, depending on the butcher marks that you see, is it almost like a fingerprint for the groups that it kind of came from, of like where you recognize like a butcher mark and be like, oh, this is from not like a particular group of Neanderthals, but like from this region, they did it this way. This region did it this way. And you can kind of tell that from the butcher marks?
That's the plan. So if everyone starts applying these methods and starts doing this consistently, then yes, we will develop this really cool global database of all of that and much, much more.
Okay, cool. So for someone who's looking to get into anthropology or archaeology, is there a specific salary range they should be looking at? Whether, because I know it's going to range greatly depending on if you're entry level or if you have experience and the countries.
Yes. Yeah, so in Australia, it's actually quite unfortunate because we don't have a standard rate. We do have the Australian Association of Consulting Archaeologists Incorporated, which is, you don't have to be a member to be an archaeologist, but it is sort of just like this general group that archaeologists in Australia, sort of like we have conferences and stuff. So that's sort of our guideline for what we expect archaeological practice and archaeological wages and stuff to be in Australia. But it's not standardized and it's not enforced, because it's literally just the other archaeologist on the panel being like, I think we should get this. So it's not standardized at all. everyone's on a different rate. It's not even the same, like within companies, you don't like different positions or different levels of qualification don't mean you're going to get a certain rate. It's all dependent on like the employer and your contract with them. But that is one of the things that not only me, but lots of archaeologists in Australia would like to see, like more standardized, because there isn't a standard rate. So if you come out of university, you could be on 60,000 Australian dollars, you could be on 40,000 Australian dollars a year. It's, yeah.
Okay. When students are looking for archaeology positions, is there any prior experience that you would recommend that they have when looking for those types of jobs?
Yes, the archaeology is very much one of those catch-22 situations where like you don't want to put you on a job if you don't have experience, but you can't get a job unless you have experience. And I realize that's true of every job, but particularly archaeology because it's such a destructive process. Once you dig a site up, you can't put it back, right? So my recommendation to being able to get those jobs is do as much field experience as you can, like paid or unpaid. Just do the field experience, get the practical skills so that when you apply for the job, you can actually demonstrate that you have the practical knowledge and not just the theoretical knowledge. Because theoretical knowledge is great, but it doesn't mean that you can actually do the job. So as much as you can, get some practical experience and apply for jobs.
Now, you're currently going through grad school to get your PhD. What is that experience like for you? And do you have any advice for students who might be looking to going into grad school?
Yes, I think the biggest thing I've learnt is that getting a PhD or a master's or whatever, any kind of higher education, it's not particularly about being the smartest or anything like that. It's just about being the most motivated and the most passionate, I think. Possibly not even the most motivated because everyone has days. I think it's just about the passion. So I know a lot of people start PhDs because they think they need it to get, a better pay or get the position that they want or, for whatever reason. But ultimately, they're doing it because they think they need to do it, not because they want to answer the research questions. And that's why a lot of people drop out or they finish their PhD and then don't end up going into that field or whatever. So, so my recommendation would be don't do it because you think you have to do it. You don't have to get a PhD. It's not a necessity. Do a PhD because you want to do the research and you want to answer the questions. And if that is the case, then you will enjoy your PhD. It's not going to be a struggle and a drag. It's something you feel like you have to do. And I'm in a bit of an awkward position as well with my PhD because I'm working and studying and I moved away from Canberra, which is where my university is, in the first year of my PhD. So I'm not actually on campus for my PhD where I was for my undergraduate and my master's. So it is a bit of a sort of a different situation because I actually feel like I have more time and freedom when I'm doing my PhD rather than when I was doing coursework. But yeah, I think just be passionate about it. Don't do it because you feel like you have to do it. Do it because you want to do it. And then everything else will follow.
Is there a lot of coursework in PhDs? Because I know undergrad is basically all coursework, and then master's is kind of like you do some coursework and then you write your thesis. But I wasn't sure what the process looks like for PhD programs.
Yeah, it's different for every department in every university. So for some PhDs, you have to do 48 units or 6 months, whatever, of coursework. For some, you don't have to. Some it's just a thesis. Some it's you have to match. If you only did like a regular master's and not an advanced master's, then you need to like match that amount of coursework. So it really just depends. But I think, at least from my understanding in Australia, most PhDs is based on the research rather than the coursework, because the point of a PhD is to contribute new knowledge to like the knowledge pool rather than just understanding the knowledge that's already been put out.
Gotcha. Now, what's the difference between like writing a master's thesis and like a PhD dissertation? Because I know they're both really long papers, but what's the difference between those two?
I'm actually doing a PhD by standard thesis format, so I can't answer it 100% like accurately. From my understanding, it's basically the length and the research questions that are being answered. I'm doing a PhD by publication, so it's sort of the same thing, But instead of writing one big book that no one's ever going to read, I'm publishing multiple little papers and then just linking them together to answer my overall research theme. But I think when I did my master's thesis, it was the same sort of principle. You need to find out what isn't known, find the gap in the knowledge, and then answer that question. So you're still doing the same thing. I think it's just at the PhD level, you're trusted more with materials. You don't need to be supervised as much as in your master's. And like you're really showing that, because you're going to be a doctor after this, right? You need to really prove and that you're going to be a doctor. And I don't know what it is in other countries, but in Australia, a master's thesis is 20,000 words and a PhD thesis is 100,000 words. So it's like a pretty big disparity.
Ugh, and I complained when I had to write like 500-word paper. Oh God. Yeah, I don't think I would survive. Like I had one class where we had to write, it was like a 20-page paper. But it was like a life skills class. So you had to write it about you and like your life and then going into like retirement, investments and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, literally give me any other topic but myself. And I could probably do this a lot better. But I don't want to talk about myself. Like and that one was rough and it took a whole semester and it was a struggle. I filled most of my pages with like graphs and charts and so I didn't have as many words, but that's a lot. 20,000 to 100,000. Oh my gosh. I think I'd rather do what you're doing, which is the smaller publications rather than one large paper. Because I feel like it makes it feel like as if you're making progress and like taking bites out of one big thing rather than just like, oh, here's this one big thing you have to do. And I'd be like, no, I'm okay.
That's exactly right. It makes it so much more manageable.
During the excavations that you've done, have you ever found anything super interesting or weird?
Ah, all of them. All right, let's go through them, hey? The first excavation I did was in the Philippines. That was a 3,000-year-old jar burial site. So people were burying their dead, or like originally like a normal burial, just in the ground. And then they were digging them back up once they had decomposed and then putting them in jars and burying them for a second time. And they did this for babies, adults, to like everyone. So that was really interesting.
There must be some really big jars.
There were some really big jars and there were some really small jars. And then what else have I done? Oh, I did an excavation in Vanuatu, which was really cool. It was the first excavation I did as a zooarchaeologist, not a forensic archaeologist. And it's literally just like a whole cave full of different, mostly rat bones. It doesn't sound very exciting, all different rats. But within that, big deep spits, all of a sudden we start getting brown rats versus all these different type of rats. And Vanuatu and a lot of Pacific islands are only colonized by people, right? And brown rats come with people. And so because of that, we all of a sudden have a date of people arriving to this particular island. So that was really cool. I've done digs in like medieval castles and stuff in Germany, obviously Australia. So that's probably the coolest thing, I think, is that with my research in Neanderthals, the site that I'm working on is, so far we have dates between like 16 to 80,000 years, but we haven't finished excavating, so it's going to be older. And in Australia, where I work on Western Australia, is some of the oldest occupation sites, so generally between like 45 to 60,000 years old. So it's really cool because Neanderthals only went extinct about 40,000 years ago, that I'm working like sometimes on sites in Australia that are the same age as Neanderthal sites over in Europe. Different species, totally different cultures doing their own thing at the same time. And that is just, again, like a fairy tale. It's just so mind-boggling that Neanderthals are over here doing their thing and then, Homo sapiens are over here in Australia doing their thing. And they're just so different but so similar. It's just amazing.
Now, do you feel that by obtaining an anthropology and archaeology degree has kind of broadened how you view the world?
Oh, 100%. I mean, besides just obviously like the travel that's inherently a part of archaeological and anthropological research. Yeah, just the learning of it all. I don't even know how to explain it besides when I was in my undergrad, I literally felt like I was going crazy. Like I could feel my brain like rewiring itself and making different connections Because anthropology, I think anthropology more so than archaeology. Anthropology is such this like deconstruction of everything that you know and then rebuilding it up in different ways and making different connections between things. So I honestly think that everyone, regardless of what they're studying, should do one like introductory course in anthropology because it teaches you like how to think about thinking. Like it's really what it does. It just teaches you how to think. That's essentially what it does. And it's so important. And it broadens your understanding of your own culture, of past cultures, of different cultures, like extent different cultures, how everything's interrelated, how, you know, not just humans, obviously anthropology is a study of humans, but there's so much more that goes into it, you know, our different interactions with other species, like other primates and things. Like it's just, yeah, and everything's so related. And as you said, and on your website, there's all the different streams of anthropology, right? So it's not like, oh, you know, you do archaeology and that's it. You know, there's primatologists, there's biological anthropologists, there's linguists, there's everyone comes together to like make an understanding of the world, right? Because that's what the world is. Nothing is isolated. Everything is connected. And I think that's what anthropology teaches you is that everything is connected.
Absolutely. I've always said it, like, I wish anthropology was taught in primary school because when we're at such a young age, it's so much easier to make you a more mindful person if you start learning these things earlier on. Because once you get older and you start forming your own opinions and you're going through your life experiences, it kind of cements a little bit how you view things. But I feel like if you get there early of like, you know, we're humans, we're the same species, but we're different and different is okay. And, you know, teaching others to think differently and outside the box and that different perspectives are honestly better than having one same perspective. I think students and kids would be a lot more open-minded to all the things going on around them if they learned that a lot earlier in life and not when they're in college.
100%. I 100% agree. And that's what I meant about I felt my brain rewiring itself because that's what happens is you just taught, you know, certain things all throughout your life. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, no, let's take it back a step. Why do you think that way? Can we think a different way? Is that beneficial? And it's very cool. It's a very cool discipline. And yeah, and there's so many different sub-disciplines within it. Like you can't be bored. There's medicinal anthropology. You can study anything.
I mean, as long as it has to do with people and cultures and traditions, it could be literally anything because we're involved in everything.
Exactly.
Now, before we get to our final 4 questions, is there anything we haven't discussed today that you'd still like the listeners to know about?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, obviously follow me and all the people that I follow. If you're interested in archaeology, watch this space for Neanderthals, not just my research, but everyone's research. Everyone's doing very cool things. Not even actually with the Neanderthals, but with other species as well. I think one of the big things that maybe not every archaeologist, but I think a lot of archaeologists, including myself, are trying to tackle at the moment is deconstructing this human superiority complex that we have, which is sort of a weird thing to do as an archaeologist or an anthropologist where we study ourselves and we're trying to tell ourselves that we're not, you know, so great. But I think archaeology is doing a really good job at the moment, like particularly since the turn of the century, at giving agency to non-Homo sapiens. So I think that is a really promising avenue of archaeology that everyone should keep their eye on, and hopefully that will just broaden just like the world's perception of, you know, everything has its place and we're just part of that bigger place. You know, we're not at the top. We're just part of that bigger interconnected web.
Yeah, exactly. So we've touched on this question a little bit, but is there another piece of advice you would offer to someone who's interested in getting into whether it's zooarchaeology, paleoanthropology, or just archaeology in general?
Yes, just do it, first of all. Like, just go out and do like a week or a couple of days or whatever. Find somewhere where you can do it and actually get the experience, because it's like, it's fine if you don't like it. Some people don't like the field work and some people just do the lab work and they would rather just do like experimental archaeology, or they just want to do the writing, or they decide archaeology isn't for me, which is like the opposite to what I did. I decided anthropology wasn't for me and I wanted to do archaeology. So yeah, I think, yeah, like my biggest advice to anyone wanting to do anything really is just try it. It's never too late. If you don't like it, you don't have to stick with it. And if you like it, that's great.
Yeah. Are there any changes that you'd like to see in your industry other than pay?
The biggest thing I would like to see a change in is, I don't really know how to word this concisely, but obviously males and females, like biological males, biological females, have different physical abilities, right? In Australia, our ground is so tough. It's just like rock hard burnt clay. It is so hard to dig through. So when you see, those videos of everyone excavating with toothbrushes and little trowels, like we don't get to do that very often. We are using like shovels and mattocks. The ground just sucks. Obviously, it's harder for women to do that than for men, right? And so, unfortunately, archaeology is still a very male-dominated field because they only, want to put men on the field work because the tools we're using are designed for men. And it actually, same as our workwear. So in Australia, because we're working on like mine sites and stuff, we have to wear high-vis like gear, like the fluorescent shirts and the steel-toed boots and stuff. And a lot of those don't even come in women's sizes. They're only made for men. So that is the biggest thing I would like to see a change in, is the development of archaeological tools and personal protective equipment that is actually designed for women archaeologists and not just for male archaeologists.
Yeah. So any ladies out there who are in fashion design and anthropology, that's one big area you could get rich in, is making female archaeology clothes and PPE. And
and tools. Like I can swing a mattock, right? The mattock head is going to be the same whether it's on a 6-foot pole or a 4-foot pole.
Like, come on, it's like, I don't want to have to make my own here. Can you just do it for me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just more female focused archaeology, I think, would be good. Even like in terms of being in the field, it's so male focused. We're out in remote field work, If we're not excavating, we're surveying. So we're just walking around, forests or deserts or wherever, 10 hours a day. And unless there's a female on site, no one thinks to hire a portaloo, because guys can just go anywhere. Where are we supposed to go when there's 2 other male archaeologists, 6 male traditional owners working with us, our personnel from the mining company? Or are we just going to squat right there and then? Yeah, so it is a very male-dominated field. So I would love to see some more, particularly in consulting. Research definitely is becoming more and more female-orientated, but consultancy is so male-dominated.
Now, on the flip side, what do you just absolutely love about your job in the industry you work in?
Like I said before, it is just such a fairy tale. Like, I cannot believe, like, looking around this room, I have fossils that are 110 million years old. Like, that is unfathomable. Like, you can't even understand like how old that is. It's like trying to understand the size of the sun, right? Like, you can see it drawn on a piece of paper, but you can't actually understand it until you're there yourself. So yeah, I just love that. Like, I get to do what I love, and my job consists of just going out into the dirt and digging something up and playing with it and figuring out what it is and talking to people, and like, that's great. Getting different views on the world, different cultural information. It's just so interesting and just like a fairy tale come true.
When you say fairy tale, it makes me think of like when people go and visit like the 7 wonders of the world. So going to the pyramids or the Taj Mahal, Great Wall of China, and you kind of just like look at it and you're like, one, this thing is humongous. How did people even do this way back when? Because like, I mean, even today with our current technology, they struggle to figure out how it was made or to do it themselves with modern technology. They're like, but how did they do it way back when they didn't have any of this? Which I think people back then were smarter because of it. But just like looking at it, because like I went to Australia, I think it's almost 2 years now. And every time I'd look at the Opera House, I was just like, how did someone even like conceive of how to make this? Because from what people don't know, if they haven't been there or seen certain pictures, it's not one building. It's like multiple buildings that have like the roofs that make it look like it's connected. And every time I'd stare at it, I'm like, I'm going to wake up right now and like not be looking at this. And it's just like, I'm going to blink and it's going to disappear. And I feel like that's how most people feel when they see things like in museums or, big historical artifacts and whatnot, is you just can't believe your eyes that this even exists.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's hard to believe. Like, obviously it is because you're holding it, but yeah, just that initial like, wow,
Yeah.
it doesn't get old. And I think that is just what keeps me going is that every day there's a wow moment. So it's just really cool.
Well, my final question to you is where can listeners learn more about you and what you do?
So you can follow me on LinkedIn, ResearchGate, academia, my org ID. I think that's all my professional profiles. But mostly LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about all things archaeology and bones and the different fields within archaeology, because you've got like 5 different ones that you're in within archaeology. So it's great. It was a great time.
Oh, thank you very much. I had a pleasure talking. Thank you very much for letting me babble on.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. And I look forward to maybe chatting with you in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully our paths will cross again. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to chat again if at any point in the future you would like to. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty then. Well, you have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of AnthroPuzzled. This show was produced by me and distributed in collaboration with the American Anthropological Association. A special thanks to Cheyenne Brewer for editing the website, L. Akers for the incredible logo design, and to AnthroPuzzled's interns for the episode descriptions. The music is courtesy of Chad Crouch, aka Poddington Bear of Sound and Picture. If you have any questions, you can reach me at abby.letzinger@anthropuzzled.com or as AnthroPuzzled on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time.